in our policy, then you don't need diversity in our consumer dollar. You don't need inclusion on our shopping list. We will shop with who does business with us. We will walk with who walks with us. We will stand with who stands with us. And we are not afraid of Trump. We've been beating giants since David. You just one more giant we got to face. Right now, they are trying to redo district lines. They can't win fair, so they're going through redistricting fights. Then they go through now trying to change how they choose governors in the Federal Reserve. We are seeing things we never saw before. But let me tell you something. They never seen us before. You're dealing with a new person. And we not by ourselves. Because if you looked all the blocks we filled, some of our white brothers and sisters was here. Some of our gay brothers and sisters was here. LGBTQ. Some from Palestine, some from Israel, some Jewish, some Gentile. We all coming together because we are not going to let you in this democracy and go into an autocracy. Let me say this as I wind down. I know some of you rode all night to get here. You're here from Tennessee. Tennessee in the house. Tallahassee, Florida in the house. Atlanta, Georgia in the house. Baltimore, Maryland in the house. Buffalo, New York in the house. New Jersey in the house. Washington, D.C. in the house. We going all Detroit, Michigan in the house. We are all over the country, but all of us on Wall Street, because we wanted y'all to know the address, because we coming back with an escalated movement. We will not get off Wall Street. You are the ones financing Trump. You better back him up or we are going forward. And I saw Mayor Ras Baraka spoke from North. I invited all the candidates for mayor to be here. So I don't endorse candidates, but I take attendance. Let's hear from Andrew Cuomo. Oh, he's not here. Let's hear from Eric Adams. Oh, he's not here. Let's hear from Zoran Mandani.
How are we doing today? Is the dream still alive? Is the dream still alive? Is the dream still alive? We know that dream lives on in every single person who is here today. It is a dream that we have heard time and again that it has to be deferred. And yet we know that its time has come. As we stand here in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, as we stand here by Wall Street, where last year they had more than $40 billion in bonuses. We ask ourselves, how is it that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are still living in poverty? We ask ourselves, how is it that we have still yet to answer the question that Dr. King posed all those decades ago? Because what he said then, and what we must answer now, is what good is it to have the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger? Our freedom is only it. And I want to thank Reverend Sharpton. I want to thank the King family for continuing to show that this
Afternoon. Good to see all of you. I want to begin today's briefing by addressing the horrific shooting that took place yesterday at the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a deranged shooter opened fire during morning mass, killing an innocent 8-year-old and 10-year-old. 14 other children and 3 adults were also injured during this horrible tragedy. This was the first morning mass of the school year for these beautiful, innocent children, and this sacred religious service was desecrated by an evil monster. We are all eternally grateful to the heroic law enforcement officers and first responders whose courage and swift response aided all of those impacted by this horrible tragedy. As Director Kash Patel confirmed yesterday, the FBI is currently investigating this shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. President Trump signed a proclamation yesterday following his call with the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, acknowledging the victims and their families and directing flags to be flown at half-mast. President Trump and the First Lady encouraged the entire nation to join all of us in praying for the victims and their families as they face unimaginable grief and loss. The White House and the FBI will continue to provide further updates as they become available. I also have a quick scheduling announcement for you today. The President will travel to New York City on September 22nd to address the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, September 23rd. On another matter, as Americans make their Labor Day weekend travel plans, they will be able to enjoy 5-year low gas prices thanks to President Trump fully unleashing American energy dominance. President Trump ended Joe Biden's Green New Scam policies and is delivering on his promise to make America affordable again. These savings at the pump are giving everyday American families more room in their budgets at the end of each month, which is the exact opposite of what we saw under the previous administration. And as we commemorate Labor Day this year, we finally have a president who fights and delivers for the American worker every single day. President Trump believes that American workers are the heart and soul of our economy and our national identity, which is why he's championed an agenda that puts them first always. For decades, the hardworking men and women of our country who built the greatest nation in world history were sold out by selfish, greedy, short-sighted globalists who put our country on a path to economic and cultural ruin. They hollowed out our factories and towns and betrayed the American working class by shipping jobs overseas and importing millions of low-wage migrants to replace American workers. Under President Trump, this national disgrace is over. American workers are, once again, being put at the center of national trade policy, and the dignity of American labor is being defended. As a result, President Trump has already brought in nearly $10 trillion in new private and foreign investments so that the top businesses in the world can create high-paying jobs in America and hire American workers to fill them. In fact, since President Trump took office, the economy has added more than 500,000 new jobs to the workforce. In a stark reversal from the Biden administration, all of that job creation has been driven by private sector growth, and all employment gains have gone to native-born Americans. Wages for blue-collar workers are now rising at the fastest rate in the past 60 years. And the average American worker has already seen a $500 wage increase this year alone. Thanks to the largest middle tax cuts ever signed into law by President Trump, with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, Americans in all 50 states will keep more of their hard-earned money. The average American taxpayer will see a tax cut of nearly $4,000 because of these pro-growth provisions, according to analysis from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. In other news, President Trump continues to deliver on his promise to restore law and order to our nation's capital. Since President Trump's intervention, there have been more than 1,283 arrests right here in the District of Columbia. Total crime in D.C. is down 19%, and violent crime is down 30%. Carjackings in the district are down 67%. Homicides are down 57%. Robberies are down 40%. Motor vehicle thefts are down 32%, and assaults with dangerous weapons are down 23%, and property crime is down 18%. These numbers prove the president's bold actions to make D.C. safe and beautiful again are working, just like he said they would. And that's why on Monday, the president took additional action to sign an executive order taking steps to ensure that cashless bail in Washington, D.C. is eliminated. For too long, D.C.'s reckless cashless bail policies have allowed dangerous criminals to be quickly released, which endangers everyone who lives in and visits our wonderful capital. No cash bail has also foolishly forced law enforcement to repeatedly arrest the same offenders over and over again, only for them to be released back into our nation's capital. This is the definition of insanity, and the president is seeking to end it. He also signed a separate executive order addressing the crime emergency in D.C. by instructing the National Park Service to hire additional United States Park Police officers to support public safety, and directing the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. to hire additional prosecutors to focus solely on violent and property crimes. So while liberal Democrats across the country continue to double down on their failed soft on crime approach, the American people, including local D.C. leadership, business owners, and residents, are rallying behind President Trump's crime crackdown. According to new polling, 81% of Americans say crime is a major problem in large cities across the country. And a clear majority of Americans believe the president's actions are justified and necessary to reduce crime in these cities. Indu Bhatia, who runs a liquor store a half-mile from the White House here just down the street, is one of those Americans who are grateful for President Trump's public safety push. Indu recently told the New York Post that her store was robbed so many times that they had to spend exorbitant sums of money on security, jeopardizing her family's financial future. But thanks to President Trump's strong action, Indu said, quote, "All of my employees, including me, we feel much safer, and even our customers feel really happy when they walk into our store." And just yesterday, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser credited President Trump for surging federal law enforcement personnel and said neighborhoods, quote, "feel and are much safer." We thank Mayor Bowser for her cooperation and her willingness to help us make D.C. safe and beautiful. This entire effort has vindicated what President Trump and law and order advocates have been saying for years, and this is our message to Americans in Democrat-run cities nationwide. Decline is a choice. You don't have to live in constant fear of being robbed, raped, or murdered. Your leaders are lying to you, and they have been failing you for decades. The President Trump approach of upholding law and order by letting our brave men and women in blue actually do their jobs to aggressively fight crime works. In just a few weeks, President Trump has done more for D.C. residents than Democrats did in 50 years. And this can be replicated in other crime-ridden cities across the nation. As President Trump has said, all of these elected officials in charge have to do is pick up the phone and ask for the president and the federal government's help. President Trump doesn't care if they are a Republican or a Democrat leader. He wants Americans to be safe and for every law-abiding American citizen across the country to be able to thrive in their city and in their community. With that, I'll take questions. Here in our new media seat today, we have social media influencer, content creator, Brandon Tatum. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you kick us off?
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of everybody that follow me, the millions of people that follow me, I want to say thank you for making a sacrifice and dealing with some of the most disingenuous people on planet Earth at times. I have two questions. The first question is associated with the shooting that occurred the other day. And I want to ask the question of, we know that it's not a gun thing. Any rational person knows it's not a gun thing. We know it's a mental health issue. So I want to know from you, what is President Trump and the White House going to do to address mental health issues around the country associated with these shootings? And the second thing is Chicago. You know, anybody with, and I say, with a connected brainstem knows that Chicago's crime is out of control. And young black men are getting killed, laying dead in the middle of the streets every single day in Chicago. No president has addressed any of these issues. And so what is the White House going to do to address issues in their capacity to deal with the conflict and violence in Chicago?
Sure. Well, to your first question about this shooting in Minnesota, right now, the the administration is focused on helping the people of Minnesota. It's been less than a day, of course, since this tragedy happened. We have federal law enforcement on the ground assisting local law enforcement. This investigation is ongoing. There's still a lot of facts to understand about these circumstances, and so we're going to continue to do that. As for Chicago and cracking down on crime, it is a priority of this administration to ensure that American cities are safe again, and I'm so glad that you brought up the crime in Chicago, because we've been seeing the governor of Illinois parading out there saying that there's nothing wrong with Chicago. It's a great place to live. There's no crime there. He doesn't need President Trump's help. Well, I think the residents of Chicago beg to differ, and the statistics beg to differ. And I'll just share a few of those statistics with all of you. For 13 consecutive years, Chicago has had the most murders of any U.S. city. This is J.B. Pritzker's legacy, by the way. For 7 consecutive years, Chicago has had the highest murder rate among U.S. cities with more than 1 million people. In 2024, just last year, Chicago's murder rate per capita was 3 times higher than Los Angeles and nearly 5 times higher than New York City. That's more than double the murder rate in Islamabad and nearly 15 times more than Delhi. Out of Chicago's 147,899 reported crimes this year, that's how many crimes have been reported in Chicago since January 1st. There have only been arrests in 16% of them. These numbers are unacceptable. There have been more illegal guns recovered in Chicago than in New York City and Los Angeles combined. The number of reported motor vehicle thefts last year was more than double the number in 2021. And Chicago has also, just like DC, come under scrutiny over discrepancies in its homicide data reporting. So as bad as these numbers are, perhaps they are even worse. And this is Governor Pritzker's legacy. He should put politics aside. He should pick up the phone and call this president, who would be more than happy to do right by law-abiding American residents in the city of Chicago, and we hope that he will. Gabe, and thanks for being here, Brandon. Gabe.
Carolyn, thank you so much. First, on the firing of the CDC director, first,
Sure.
Who will replace her? And then also, overnight, the White House said that she did not align with the president's agenda. Dr. Menard's attorney say that she refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. What specifically did she do wrong?
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission. A new replacement will be announced by either the president or the secretary very soon. And the president and Secretary Kennedy are committed to restoring trust and transparency and credibility to the CDC by ensuring their leadership and their decisions are more public-facing, more accountable, strengthening our public health system, and restoring it to its core mission of protecting Americans from communicable diseases, investing in innovation to prevent, detect, and respond to future threats. That's the mission of the CDC, and we're going to make sure that folks that are in positions of leadership there are aligned with that mission.
And briefly on another topic, alligator Alcatraz. Last week, a judge on an environmental concerns lawsuit said that the administration had 60 days to wind down operations there, state officials did. Now, the administration has not been shy in fighting back against what it calls activist judges, but why is it backing down this time?
We're not backing down. We've always said that we are going to continue to fight in the court of law for what's right, because we know that what this administration is doing with respect to all policy, but also immigration policy, is above the books, and we're abiding by our nation's immigration laws. And we think it's despicable that an activist judge has inserted themselves in this migrant detention facility to the point where DHS is now having to relocate these illegal immigrants to other detention facilities around the country. That is an unnecessary burden on the Department of Homeland Security and these agents who should be removing these criminals from our community. That's what the American people elected this president to do. So we've always maintained, Gabe, we're going to comply with court orders, but we're also going to fight back on them on the merits of the law. And DHS is in compliance while we disagree with this decision, and we'll continue to fight it in court. Let's go to...
Hey,
Go ahead.
Thanks so much. So just following up on the CDC firing.
Sure.
Are you anticipating other changes there at CDC in addition to that firing? And is the administration going through in a very sort of organized fashion? Is there a task force that's going through high-level appointees to see who is or isn't aligned with the mission? Like, should we expect more changes?
Not to my knowledge. I understand there were a few other individuals who resigned after the firing of Ms. Monarez. One of those individuals wrote in his departure statement that he identifies pregnant women as pregnant people. So that's not someone who we want in this administration anyway. So if people are not aligned with the president's vision and the secretary's vision to make our country healthy again, then we will gladly show them the door.
Caroline, can I just
Go to the back.
Thank you, Caroline.
Go behind you, Andrew. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. The military deployment that President Trump has sent to the Caribbean Sea close to the shores with Venezuela is massive. It's much more that is needed to simply counter narcotics operations. Is President Trump considering launching military strikes to military installments or facilities in Venezuelan soil?
I won't get ahead of the president with respect to any military action or questions about that ever. But what I will tell you is that many Caribbean nations and many nations in the region have applauded the administration's counter-drug operations and efforts, and the president is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. And as I've said from this podium before, the Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. Maduro is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this drug cartel. He has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into our country, and it is the utmost responsibility of this president and this administration to prevent the illicit flow of drugs into our country and to protect citizens from those deadly poisons. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
Democrats, including former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, attacked prayer and pushed gun control in the aftermath of yesterday's shooting. What's the White House's response to their comments?
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
My second question for you is that there have been media outlets who have glazed over the fact that the shooter was confused in their gender identity. Does the administration believe that this element needs to be investigated in the shooting?
All of the elements are being investigated in the shooting, absolutely. Which is why part of the reason the FBI director came out and immediately confirmed that facet of the investigation. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Two questions on two separate issues. First of all, the drone and missile strikes that took place overnight in Ukraine. General Keith Kellogg, the president's special envoy, has described these attacks as egregious. Do you agree with that description, and do you view President Putin as an impediment to getting peace between these two countries?
Well, it's not about if I agree, it's about what the president thinks, and I know what the president thinks because I talked to him about this. He was not happy about this news, but he was also not surprised. These are two countries that have been at war for a very long time. Russia launched this attack on Kyiv, and likewise, Ukraine recently dealt a blow to Russia's oil refineries. They have taken out, as a matter of fact, 20% of Russia's oil refinery capacity over the course of their attacks throughout the month of August. So the president is continuing to watch this intently, and this killing, unfortunately, will continue as long as the war continues, which is why the president wants it to end. And that's why he's worked harder than anyone to end this war, which would have never started if he were president. But perhaps both sides of this war are not ready to end it themselves. The president wants it to end, but the leaders of these two countries need it to end and want it to end, must want it to end as well. And I think the president will make some additional statements on this later.
My second question has to do with, I just had one more, if I may. It has to do with the president's intention to remove Lisa Cook as a member of the Federal Reserve Board. He is going or acting upon allegations that have been made by Trump administration official Bill Pulte These are just allegations. She hasn't been convicted yet of any crime. Is the administration opposed to allowing Ms. Cook to have due process, to challenge what has been alleged against her?
I believe she is challenging it. I believe she just filed a lawsuit today, and Mr. Pulte has deferred those allegations over to the Department of Justice to investigate them. What I will say is that you had these mortgage receipts very clearly shown to the president, and he has the cause that he needs to fire this individual. He laid it out in the letter that he provided to her and to the public as well. And so we'll continue to fight this battle. Carrie.
Hi, Caroline. So the president just announced that he wants to have a convention right before the midterms next year. The GNC has countered that they too want to have a convention right before the midterms as well. What's the White House's response to that? And can you give us just a little bit of a hint or a tease here as to how the president envisions a convention for the midterms?
Look, the president put out a statement on this earlier today. I'll let him speak further on the plans that he envisions, but I think he's very proud of the accomplishments and the achievements of his administration, as he should be. The most secure border in United States history, a crackdown on crime here in our nation's capital, an attack or a reversal of the attack on our energy industry from the previous administration. As I just pointed out to you, gas prices today, this Labor Day, are the lowest they've been since Labor Day in 2020. Our economy is bringing in trillions of dollars in revenue from all over the world again. So there's so much for Republicans and for the president and for Americans across the country to be proud of, and I think the president wants to see that celebrated. But for any further details on this as they come, we'll provide you with them. Iris.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions on the shooting. What's the administration's message to some concerned parents across the country who might be now worried about their kids' safety in light of the latest incident?
We completely and totally understand the concerns of parents across the country. This tragedy it's heartbreaking. As a parent myself, there are no words to describe just the heartbreak that these families must be enduring, which is why the president and the First Lady have encouraged everyone to continue to pray for these families and these victims. And it's why this administration is focused on removing public safety threats from our communities. And in fact, I can share with all of you that last night in Washington, D.C., when arrests were being made, there was an arrest of a juvenile right here in D.C. in Ward 7 for threats to kidnap and injure, receiving stolen property, possession of a large capacity feeding device, unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. A search warrant was executed, 7 firearms were recovered, and the juvenile was arrested after an investigation was initiated based on social media posts allegedly threatening violence towards a school. So this was a juvenile who was a risk to not just himself, but the community here in Washington, and he was removed from the community last night because of the law enforcement efforts of this administration. And I would also point to the statement of our wonderful First Lady that she released yesterday. She wrote, "The tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates the need for preemptive intervention in identifying school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. We encourage all Americans, as the old saying goes, if you see something, say something. If you see warning signs or threats, report it to law enforcement." This administration, federal law enforcement, will take those reports and those threats seriously. They will be treated as a law enforcement emergency, and we will act accordingly.
And on the First Lady's statement, would the administration consider ramping up resources on these fronts to parents and schools across the country to help them look into these signs and prevent more tragedies?
It's a very fair question, Iris. As for any potential future policy decisions or funding questions, it's just been over 24 hours since this tragedy occurred. Right now, we're focused on the FBI and their investigation and uncovering all the facts, and we'll leave those very important policy discussions to another day.
Thank you, Caroline.
Go ahead. Megan.
I had a question about the Lisa Cook lawsuit that you mentioned. Does the president plan to wait until that lawsuit is resolved to appoint her replacement?
I will leave that to the president to make that decision in that announcement himself. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. Bouncing off the CDC, the situation with CDC, I'm curious if administration officials are pushing back on the president's agenda, privately, publicly, however, should they fear to lose their jobs going forward?
Look, I think if you're doing your job well, and if you are executing on the vision and the promises that the president made to the public who elected him back to this office, then you should have no fear about your job. Just do your job. That's what this president wants to see. He wants to see people solving problems. He wants to see the people who have the privilege of serving the American taxpayer and the federal government abiding by the wishes of the American taxpayers who overwhelmingly reelected him in this cabinet to make America great again, or in this case, make America healthy again.
On the Intel deal, where the U.S. got a stake in that company, there's two things I want to ask about that. The first is, what did the U.S. get back in return for that deal? And the second thing is, what are the future plans for giving any form of money to another company? It could be through the CHIPS Act, like this deal, or some other form of funds. What are the plans there by this White House administration?
Well, look, as you know, Brian, very well, because you cover it often, the Intel deal is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce. The T's are still being crossed, the I's are still being dotted. It's very much still under discussion. But the president's thinking, I can share with you, is certainly to ensure that the United States government is making our country wealthy again and is benefiting from some of these deals. And it's a creative solution. I know it's outside the box thinking, which is uncommon in this city, but it's something that he proposed and something that the Secretary of Commerce is working on putting into action. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have a couple questions on the shooting yesterday. The first one, this is the second shooting involving a trans-identifying shooter who specifically targeted Christians and Catholic kids. What kind of consequences do the gender-affirming therapists, doctors, or even the parents of these shooters face after these types of shootings?
Well, as for the parents and potential therapists in this case, again, all of that is still currently being investigated by the FBI. I know the Secretary of Health and Human Services this morning said that HHS is investigating perhaps links between some of these drugs and these prescription drugs that some of these minors may be taking and an increase in violence. And obviously we have mental health problems in this country that this administration and Secretary Kennedy will continue to speak out about and the work that we're doing to solve it.
Thank you. And just to follow up, I've seen a lot of calls for action, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right, actually, is...
Yon gros bonsoir pour nous toutes. Nous saluons tout le monde. Nous sommes contents pour nous ensemble avec vous. Non pas M. Madame Marcelin. Et nous bienvenue sur réseau Parola Pstars FM Radio-Télévision dans leur émission Parola qui c'est Info 13 que nous portons pour vous. Nous venons là juste pour nous informer pendant que nous avons dit avec M. Prien. Bonsoir. Comment est-ce?
Bonsoir Madame Massin, bonsoir tout le monde. Pour résumer pour l'autre gombaga qui mal passé là, donc nous bien content pour nous ensemble avec vous, en tout cas arrêtez ensemble avec nous sur réseau pour là. Pstars FM radio et télévision n'a pas porté pour vous ça qui concerne l'actualité sur le plan national et international Madame Massin.
Eh bien, nous ne connaissons pas de faire développement pour introduction pour nous.
Bon, on a juste annoncé mon que ça qui domine l'actualité a gagné. Nous avons parlé avec la secrétaire d'État presse dans Caille Blanche qui a fourni des détails non seulement sur un ensemble de points qui passaient dans le pays, mais particulièrement sur l'incident hier qui arrivait dans Minneapolis, côté que gagné. Il y a un gazam qui tué deux timounes dans l'église catholique qui a organisé une série de prières avant entrée classe là. Hier, mercredi, il y a deux timounes qui mourent, il y a 17 autres personnes qui blessés, parmi eux 14 autres timounes plus 3 adultes. États-Unis a envisagé un plan après la guerre en Israël et Hamas sur le territoire palestinien. Selon information, Jared Kushner ensemble avec Tony Blair, c'est deux premiers citoyens que l'administration américaine chita causi ensemble avec eux. Sous plan si la Benjamin Netanyahu qui gagne aval le parlement israélien ensemble avec l'armée israélienne pour le capable dégaper sous propre terre palestinien qui vivent sur le territoire Gaza et après on va déporter dans le pays Soudan. Déjà, West Bank est séparé de pays Palestine. Toujours ça qui domine l'actualité, l'État californien a gagné cause dans le tribunal devant républicain à deux reprises qui devait bloquer l'initiative gouverneure pour organiser redistricting, même ça qui ont fait dans la Cour Texas pour capable représenter une autre façon délégation parlementaire californienne dans le Congrès américain. Donc, le gouverneur a gagné cause là, c'est la Cour suprême qui va gagner de cause. Californie a tout gagné un dossier de justice devant compagnie américaine Airline Delta, côté que yo pour payer 78 millions de dollars. Une quantité de leaders politiques ensemble avec activistes droits monde réunis jeudi pour organiser une manifestation de protestation contre une série de décisions que l'administration fédérale la prend. L'État de Chicago, il fait comprendre qu'il n'y a pas besoin d'aide l'État fédéral là dans la cour Chicago sinon que tu travail pour capable permettre mon jeune assurance permettre mon jeune travail si mon à l'école la police gagne l'argent pour que capable fonctionner puis bien selon déclaration du gouverneur ensemble avec magistrat. Ça aussi quelques informations qu'on a pour développer pour avec un pilote sur réseau pour la Pstars FM radio et télévision. Madame Massin là ensemble avec serviteur Prien John Dominique pour capable faire des détails pour concernant actualité ça qui a passé à travers planète Terre. Madame Massin, bonsoir.
Oui, bonsoir monsieur Prien et oui, bonsoir avec tout super branché Pstars. Nous comptons pour nous ensemble avec vous et nous allons faire développement journal là pour vous même. Delta a payé 78 millions de dollars comme dommage à l'autorité californienne pour gaz que compagnie jeté sous territoire californien dans activité voyage selon une décision de justice qui sorti dans faveur state là.
Oui, state californien a passé un petit cob un bon petit gap dans mais responsable compagnie aérienne ça façon que yo voyager et puis dégâts que yo causé à population californienne selon décision de justice qui sorti comme nous se disons c'est contre des compagnies aériennes. Et puis l'autre information n'a pas tout n'a faut connaître que gagné 12 monde qui perdu la vie, 2 petits monde arrivé blessé. Alors 2 petits monde qui gagne 2 ans s'il vous plaît, 2 petits monde qui gagne 2 ans d'âge avec une quantité l'autre qui blessé dans le pays Ukraine, c'est suite à bombardement pays là où ici fait hier soir dans cadre bataille que lié avec Ukraine. Nous connaissons que pas trop longtemps ça, tu gagné une véritable montée de scène entre États-Unis et la Russie pour être capable d'organiser un chita palais dans l'idée pour capable chercher la paix entre Ukraine ensemble avec la Russie. Cependant, la paix ça pour qu'arrive jeune puisque Vladimir Poutine lui dit d'abord pour le chita palais ensemble avec Volodymyr Zelensky c'est pour accepter toute demande qu'il fait à savoir bout que quelqu'un le pas remettre et puis gagne l'autre partie même pour ta décider de remettre de façon pour capable délimiter ensemble avec pays Ukraine.
Toujours dans le pays les États-Unis, Lisa Cook une membre commission Odyssia que l'administration fait fédéral là, excusez-moi, révoqué, décidé pour ne pas quitter place li dans institution que occupé là de questions de santé américain yo avocat madame Cook déjà prend dossier à nommer.
C'est un véritable chirépite bras de fer qui existait entre l'administration fédérale là ensemble avec un groupe d'employés qui est au nombre de 4 comme ça que secrétaire qui est responsable question santé Robert Kennedy ensemble avec tête administration fédérale a décidé pour révoquer l'institution alors que employés pas entendre quitter poste.
Plusieurs leaders et activistes défenseurs droits citoyens organisé un gros rassemblement dans l'idée pour dénoncer politique administration Donald Trump là révérend Al Sharpton un organisateur et intervenant déclaré que bataille la fait commencer et yo papa fait back.
Oui, c'est déclaration Al Sharpton qui ajouté à président qui alors fait déclaration ça concernant président américain pour dire que li yo comprennent population comprennent très bien envie que le gain pour le graber pour accaparer pouvoir mais que ta population li pas céder bali ti pouvoir par là que li gain à travers constitution américaine non bataille a commencé et yo pas fait back selon déclaration Rivière Al Sharpton. Martin Luther King Fed numéro 3 monsieur lui-même tout été participé la dernière contre ça même Jean Papa qui était un activiste pour défendre droit monde et bien King ça lui demandé population pour continuer l'ouvrir mais également protester contre ça yo estimé qui est illégal comme décision qui sorti de côté autorité fédérale.
Toujours dans le pays les États-Unis cette fois-ci n'a faut couper dans pays dans state California la Cour suprême California pour une deuxième fois bloqué tentative républicaine qui visait pour empêcher gouverneur Newton organiser dans state là redistricting mouvement ça qui voulait dire réorganiser représentant délégation parlementaire California au niveau de congrès américain. Gouverneur démocrate là prend décision ça en réponse à décision gouverneur Texas là monsieur Greg Abbott qui était répond positivement à demande chef l'État américain président Donald Trump qui exigeait que 5 parlementaires qui habitués élus sous bannière parti démocrate là transférés sous bannière républicain parti républicain yo suite à victoire parti républicain yo dans dernière élection yo qui était déroulée dans pays les États-Unis.
Certainement Donald Trump a déclaré puisque il était remporté district ça yo dans l'état California qui surtout quand il y a un représentant démocrate et bien chef d'État a fait comprendre que il y a un droit pour que parlementaire ça transféré sous bannière parti républicain. On a retourné dans Washington avec quelques dossiers santé toujours situation chaotique qui régnait dans la cour Washington particulièrement dans CDC à cause de décision secrétaire santé M. Robert Kennedy Jr. cap mandé et alors cap marché révoqué sans prendre souffle employé en dedans institution Bobby Kennedy décidé et changer et domaine santé en dedans pays les États-Unis avec un paquet de décisions qu'il prend même dans affaires manger que population l'a manger ou bien on sait des jus par exemple que Mounio Konboy un paquet de changements on cap constaté qu'a fait en dedans administration fédérale là. Dernière décision que on prend là, il a affecté une quantité employés, il a qui déjà consulté avocat comme madame Lisa Cook qui lui-même fait comprendre que il pas quitter poste là. Daniel Medvedev qui lui-même chargé et là dans ça qui concernait et tennis là monsieur t'a joué dans tournoi de tennis États-Unis qu'a joué là US Open et bien il a chargé monsieur pour le payer $42 500 comme amende pour comportement antisportif qu'il gagnait lorsque il t'a perdu en compte monsieur t'a crasé raquette fait colère même sous arbitre ou bien juge qui siégeait monsieur obligé là gagner pour le payer $42 500 s'il vous plaît pour comportement antisportif que il t'a gagné et puis tout ça qui concerne actualité là faut connaître que gagne je dis là à gauche t'a parlé qu'a fait pour c'est que Yota arrivé une solution à problème qui gagne dans la cour pays Israël ensemble avec Palestine autorité américaine autorité fédérale particulièrement chef d'État américain organisé chita parler ensemble avec Tony Blair et puis Jared Kushner qui lui-même tout gagné un bon genre relation avec communauté juive là ben il a organisé chita parler là dans l'idée pour qui plan que capable adopter pour changer situation qui gagne dans le territoire Gaza que Israël lui-même lui occupé totalement et Israël fait connaître il fin occuper bout de ça dans toute intégralité il va voyer dans pays étrangers surtout dans la côte sud citoyens qui tapent vivre dans territoire si là et puis il y a 4000 soldats américains qui déployés dans mi-temps dans qui tout près pays Venezuela madame Caroline te fait parler de ça il fait comprendre que Nicolas Maduro pas président légal pays Venezuela c'est décision que ou bien c'est position administration américaine qui nous répète ensemble avec administration pays Venezuela comme ça bateau la guerre ça qui déploie dans zone là ligue avec lui 3 Navy destroyers ensemble avec attaqueur aircraft et bien même qui capable intervenir à n'importe quelle décision autorité américaine yo prend pour augmenter présence militaire américaine dans zone nord, lui également mettait l'huile sous du feu qui gagne une relation tête chargée qui existait entre États-Unis ensemble avec le pays Venezuela. Depuis arrivé gouvernement Donald Trump, et bien situation vient plus difficile toujours puisque administration ça lui offre une bagatelle somme de $50 millions à n'importe citoyen qui tabac information qui est dérivée arrêté ou même fini avec la vie président pays Venezuela Nicolas Maduro. Maduro qui dit que il a mis dehors environ 4 millions de soldats. N'a demandé est-ce que pays Venezuela il gagne toute quantité même ça en dedans l'armée ou bien c'est une quantité milice que gagne sans tout ça tayé en Haïti nous connaît totalement que tu fait partie de l'armée tout ou bien membre corps de sécurité en Haïti est-ce que pays Venezuela li gagne milice ça autour qui t'a capable intégrer l'armée qui fait que dit il mettait 4 millions moun diom pour capable préparer toute éventualité intervention américaine dans le pays Venezuela côté que l'administration américaine dit que eh bien Nicolas Maduro monsieur c'est un chef cartel drogue que c'est lui qui facilite le commerce drogue ça a fait entre pays Venezuela ensemble avec les États-Unis de manière illégale. Donc c'est comme ça situation liée madame monsieur. Nous remercions pour tant que vous te prendre pour participer ensemble avec nous suivre présentation édition de nouvelles ça Pstars Info 13. Eh bien, jeudi, c'est jeudi, quand ça va bien? Madame Santé avec vous, quand on m'a arrivé malé, m'kazi akui.
Eh bien, nous disons merci, M. Prien, nous disons merci à tout auditeur, auditrice, internaute, c'était un plaisir pour nous être ensemble avec vous et nous croyons que nouvelle pas crampé, information pas crampé, mais pour aujourd'hui,
ou crampé vous-même.
Crampé vous-même.
Eh bien voilà.
Pendant
que nous disons dit que nouvelle pape campé, nous parlons dans Californie à côté que le gouverneur Newsom l'a parlé kounya là, monsieur a bail détail. Madame Ascension que nouvelle là c'est non s'appliquer sur réseau pour la puissance de FM radio télévision. Nous pourrons permettre tout à l'heure déclaration gouverneur California monsieur Gavin Newsom.
You may have seen highlighted the outstanding job in partnership with 5 counties led by Ventura County. Other counties in Southern California, the work they just did and announced as it relates to the indictments, 43 counts and criminal charges in those 5 counties related to Home Depot operation that came from the support of those grants, and that was advanced because of a package of legislative reforms that I had the privilege of signing as it relates to organized retail theft that we signed last year and charged under one of those 11 or 12 specific pieces of legislation. Again, we continue to stack more support, and we continue to recognize we need to continue to do more to support our efforts. Of course, we have seen some progress. These numbers bear that out, but these numbers mean little to people. These are aggregate numbers, but we don't live in the aggregate. Everybody lives in a different community with different conditions, different challenges, and we are mindful that we have a lot more work to do, and that's precisely why we are announcing this today. I would rather be remiss if I did not comment on some of the activities as it relates to the National Guard at the federal level before I turn it over to the Commissioner and the Secretary. I am mindful, and I hope you are mindful, that any hour, any day, Justice Breyer will come out with a decision on posse comitatus. It will be the first district federal court judge in the country to adjudicate the facts on the basis of depositions that we had and hearings that we had a few weeks ago in federal court, where we deposed members of the Trump administration, Border Patrol, and the military as it relates to their operations in the state of California. I think its consequences will be profound and far-reaching. We're waiting to see that decision, and we're waiting to reflect on the impact of that decision, not just here in the state of California, but the prospects, I imagine, if we're successful in our efforts in highlighting our concerns around posse comitatus, that it will find its way into the appellate court, and the impacts, of course, that could be felt as it relates to the determination of that court on the broader western part of the United States.
We're listening in there to California Governor Newsom addressing statewide crime and also talking about the lawsuit involving National Guard troops being deployed to California. A live look right here before we step away, as we are expecting Vice President J.D. Vance to take to the stage to deliver remarks in La Crosse, Wisconsin. You can see in the back, American jobs, American steel. We are going to step away for a brief break right here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Quidnew. Mike Page is going to be your host after the break to guide you through a number of hours of breaking news, live events, and top stories. Stay with us.
The Rooms to Go Patio Labor Day sale ends Monday.